Howdy, howdy, and welcome to But It Was Aliens. Now, it's just me, Kev, here to begin with today because we spoke about doing this quite a few times, so no more messing around. For those of you not signed up to the Patreon over at patreon.com/But It Was Aliens, here is our episode covering Rasputin. Woo! I think this one was recorded on our original setup, so excuse the audio quality. We had no idea what we were doing. And weirdly, shortly after recording this episode, my old computer blew up, meaning that we lost all our master recordings up until that point. Coincidence? Or is Rasputin still working his magic? Here we go. Howdy, howdy, and welcome to Side Probes. Side Probes! The paranormal comedy podcast that has spun off of the ass of But It Was Aliens. I'm this week's host, Kevin the Grey. Granville Moonwalker is alongside me, strapped in and wearing his tinfoil hat to protect against the topic of this month's episode. Though, of course, Granville has no idea what is coming up.
But always has protection.
This one is going to be massive. Today...
That's what she said.
It's alright though, because you've got protection. Today, we are probing a gentleman by the name of Grigory Yefimovic. Grigory?
Ooh, is it Grigory? Is it Grigory?
It might be Grigory, but I'm not saying the surname again.
I'm literally only saying that because I've heard that name before and I quite like the sound of it.
So Grigory, it is Grigory, was born on the 21st of January 1869 into a peasant farming family and living in the third largest empire in known history behind only the British and the Mongol empires. This empire was ruled...
Goddamn Mongolians!
Mongolian! Was ruled by Tsar Alexander II until 1881, Alexander III next, and then from November 1894, Nicolas Romanov, Nicolas II. Here is a photo of Nicolas II, just for historical accuracy and whatnot.
Hey Nick! I feel like I've seen that picture before.
I sometimes find when you see more modern, not that it's modern, obviously we're talking quite a while ago, but when you see more modern royals, they all pose the same, they wear the same shit. Like if you made Prince Charles 20 decades ago black and white with his royal outfit on, that could be him if he grew a moustache.
Quite true, quite true. Does look familiar, although I don't know why.
He'd need to add some ear prosthetics.
Does have a nice tash.
That is a beast of a tash, yeah.
Should grow yours like that.
Regal, in fact. Well, maybe you should, greybeard.
This isn't like opposite world. You're still greybeard.
Grigory was born in Pokrovskoye, Siberia, was christened the next day, and subsequently lived a relatively normal life. Although I should mention that prior to Grigory's birth, his parents Yefim and Anna had 7 other children, all of whom passed away without making it further than early childhood.
Ooh. Was it through illness or...?
Some of them were stillbirths, I believe. Some died very young.
Neglect? Were they arsehole
Not neglect,
parents?
no. Just... it was almost like a spirit was taking away their life.
Did they, did someone in their, like, family make a deal with a Tokolosh? Several.
Not that I know of, but I couldn't rule it out. There may have actually been a 9th child, Theodosia, as some historical accounts report Grigory to have been close to Theodosia and godfather to her children, but records do not clarify for definite. Anyhow, Grigory at about 17 years of age, travelled in 1886 to Abalak, settled down and married a lovely young lady by the name of Praskovia Dubrovina in February 1887. The couple...
Sorry. Could you imagine at 17 just like moving somewhere else and getting married?
It's bonkers, but back in these days, people were marrying people at like 11 to 14 and having children. It's just, yeah, you just can't imagine.
I'm still a child.
And I got 3 jobs, 6 kids.
But I'm still a kid.
So this couple would in full have 7 children, although only 3 survived. Dmitri, Maria, and Varvara. Here is Grigory the farmhand with his children. There you are, good sir.
So, pretty standard picture, really. Father with his 3 kids. On his right-hand side is his daughter, Maria. He's holding one of his sons.
I assume so.
Yeah. I don't know if that is a boy, because I don't know if Bavaria is a boy's name or a girl's name. So he's holding one of his kids in his hands. And then the other one is standing to the other side of him. And Grigory and his daughter and the child is holding are all dressed in white, while the other is all in black and has a pretty menacing look on his face.
Demon child.
So do you know which one that is?
No idea.
Oh, okay.
I could research it, but it's not really relevant to where this is going.
Oh, okay, no problem.
I'm just setting the scene. This is a family man dedicated.
With his 3 kids.
Yeah.
He's got kids!
He got kids, baby! In 1897, Grigory decided that he would leave his family and go on a religious pilgrimage, and from this time, Grigory became known as a wandering monk. Grigory is better known as Rasputin.
Oh, son! I was about to ask, why the fuck would you just like, yeah, I'm just gonna go on a spiritual walk. And now that you've just said that he's Rasputin, he just wanted to go and get laid, didn't he? It was, I've had enough of this. What can I do to get out? Spiritual walk. That's it.
Little is known of Rasputin's early life outside of what I have just described. In fact, his past has been described as a black hole. Meanwhile, little is known as to why he decided to go on that pilgrimage.
To get some poo.
People have subsequently suggested his early life consisted of much drinking, blasphemy, and light crime, and that he left to escape horse theft. But these were serious crimes in old Russia and would have been recorded. No records exist. All we know is that Rasputin was 28, had been married 10 years, and had 1 son plus a second on the way. Here he is photographed later with Mary and his wife.
Hold on.
The picture I showed you was like later on. So I've just rewound back a little bit. So at this point he's got 1 kid and 1 on the way.
Wasn't his daughter Maria?
Shortened to Mary.
Oh, I was about to say, who the hell is Mary?
She went by Mary as she aged.
Okay, so in this picture he looks much more like Rasputin than Grigory, in terms of the Rasputin that we know. And is he crossing his fingers there?
He's got like the claw. I reckon he's about to stick it somewhere. Because that hand is primed and ready to pop.
I was just wondering if he had just sworn that he hadn't cheated or something. But had his fingers crossed while she wasn't looking. While she was busy looking at the camera.
But yeah, your theory is that he just got sick of family life and made an excuse to go on a religious...
Yeah, I think he just wanted an out.
He'd had enough after 10 years. You've made a point previously about when you put a photo black and white, everyone's eyes look cold or evil.
Did I?
You did. Because I said, look at the stare in someone's eyes, and you were like, that's always the case when they're black and white.
I don't remember that, but okay.
In this photo, you've got several pairs of eyes there. The only ones that look bizarre are his.
I don't know about that.
Have a close look at his eyes, son. Oh, Granville's asleep.
Shit. Okay, I agree with you there. I was going to say, she just looks like she's fed up and just wants this picture over and done with. Daughter just looks like she's just bemused. She has to be there. But Raspy himself, one of those eyes don't look like it's looking forward.
Yeah, you look into his eyes.
Yeah, if you look at it again.
And it's like you're looking into the eyes of Hypno.
It's like one's looking at you and the other's looking off to the right.
But before I started heavily researching this one, I can always remember hearing about his eyes, and I was thinking, nah, that's bullshit. But every single photo I've seen of him, there is something very bizarre about his eyes. So Rasputin's visit to St. Nicholas Monastery at Verkhoturyev, I'm just going to stop pronouncing these names. I'm just going to call them all like Shabi.
I'm glad this is your case and not mine.
But yeah, that visit to the monastery has been described as transformative for him.
Ooh.
A starets, or elder of the monastery, known as Makari, had a big impact indeed. Whilst he is known today as a monk, his family described him as a starets himself. Rasputin is likely to have learned to read and write whilst at this monastery for many months, but Rasputin would also complain that the monks engaged in homosexuality. Rasputin returned home looking dishevelled and having sworn off alcohol and meat. Rasputin spent much time praying and singing.
So he didn't just get up and go on a religious pilgrimage. He went to a monastery.
Well, he did get up and go.
I mean,
and he ended up at a monastery. Yeah,
it's not a case of he just got up and was like just wandering around.
It was a religious pilgrimage.
Yeah, a monk. He actually went on a pilgrimage and
supposedly
studied with monks.
Yeah. But along the way, he was like knocking on people's doors and sleeping wherever he could and that sort of thing. Like he had nothing to him.
And this monk had a big impact.
Supposedly so.
Big impact. Deep impact. Do you reckon if you went and spent 6 months at a monastery, you would come back swearing off alcohol and meat?
I swear off meat, potentially. Gobble, gobble. I don't know why, but when I think of monks in my head, I think of like Friar Tuck being drunk all the time on wine. So I find it unusual. Not unbelievable, but unusual.
I always think of like Shaolin monks who train in the martial arts. And then I always remember that there's one that has drunken style. So clearly that's the alcohol.
They're all smashed, really. Some just hold it better. Come the early 1900s, Rasputin had developed some followers. Rasputin would give prayer in makeshift chapels, which caused suspicion with the local village priest. Rumours begun that female followers would wash Rasputin before prayer. Rasputin's charisma was getting him noticed, and in either 1904 or 1905, he travelled to Kazan, a large city. Here, Rasputin continued his ways and developed a reputation as a wise, holy man who could spiritually heal others and relieve anxieties. It was almost as if he could see into people's souls. Despite stories that Rasputin was doinking his female followers, Rasputin became favoured by the Father Superior of the Seven Lakes Monastery and local church officials, whom arranged for Rasputin to travel to St. Petersburg, then capital of Russia, until replaced by Moscow in 1918.
Spiritually healing people and was it relieving their anxieties?
Yeah.
How did he do this?
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? No one really knows.
Because
we might get into some of this a little bit later on.
I wouldn't say you can heal anxiety, but you can definitely calm people's anxieties, literally just by talking to them. Well, so maybe he just had a way with words. And the fact that they say he was quite charismatic.
Yeah, maybe.
He just managed to speak to them and calm them down.
So are you suggesting that he's not telepathic at this point?
Where did telepathy come into it?
He's mentally calming them, perhaps. Look into my eyes.
No. Yeah, I'm not saying he's telepathically calming them, no. I think he's literally just talking to them.
But regardless, whatever he did, and this isn't that long ago, we're talking 1900s, he did enough to impress some pretty important people.
Mm-hmm.
In St. Petersburg, Rasputin was invited to stay in the homes of church leaders and begun attending well-connected social events, gathering more followers. One of Rasputin's strengths was that, unlike other holy men, Rasputin was a native Russian. With St. Petersburg already curious about the occult and supernatural, Rasputin's ideas and manners made him a subject of intrigue amongst the top of the St. Petersburg society. By 1905, Rasputin had relationships with several members of the aristocracy. These included the Black Princesses, Militsa and Anastasia of Montenegro, who had married the Tsar's cousins. It was these Black Peril, or princesses, interested in the occult, whom would be responsible for introducing Rasputin to Nicolas II, the Tsar. On the 1st of November 1905 at Peterhof Palace, Rasputin first met Nicolas II. The Tsar would write that he met Rasputin, a man of God, in his diary. Rasputin returned in July 1906, having sent a telegram prior to his arrival asking to present an icon of a saint to the Tsar. Rasputin was to be given 5 minutes to chat, but the Tsar and Tsarina were so taken with Rasputin, they recorded in their diary chatting for over an hour. Rasputin was said to have a telepathic ability to know what people wanted or needed to hear. Rasputin met the Tsar on the 18th of July and again in October, whereby he would first meet the Romanov children. It's unknown exactly when or even how, but somehow Rasputin was asked to heal or pray for the Tsar's sick son, Alexei. Alexei suffered with continual bleeding and the royal doctors could not prevent this. Rasputin, however, somehow, using his mystic powers, had succeeded in both easing the pain and stopping the bleeding of the young Tsarevich. Alexei, understandably, developed a close attachment with Rasputin. Whilst dates and details are unclear, it's believed that if not before, Rasputin had been summoned by the wife of the Tsar, or Tsarina, Alexandra, to pray for Alexei in the spring of 1907. The next morning, Alexei had recovered. Rasputin had been rumoured to be an actual healer since his arrival in St. Petersburg, but now it was proven.
I'm calling bullshit.
Whoa. Already?
Yeah.
This is all historically factual, you do realise. Like, this all happened.
Historically factual, taken by an account of those in the past. So,
Right.
someone could have probably thrown a coin ridiculously far and they would have called him a superhero for fucking doing it.
This is the 19...
Right.
We're not talking like the 500s, 1900s here.
Still. So, he has the ability to, like, know what people want to hear.
Yep.
And stuff like that, and he knows what to say at the right time. All that indicates is that he's a good listener.
Okay.
He's not telepathic.
But is that not healing?
He listens well.
Okay.
Very well.
Right.
Stopping the bleeding.
Yep.
Where was the bleeding come from?
Anywhere.
And what was the diagnosis? What was his illness that kept him bleeding?
No one really knew.
I mean, did he stick a plaster on him? Did that stop it?
Yeah, they tried, the doctors, and
Fucking
bear in mind...
Nickelodeon plaster with Rugrats on?
I'm not sure Nickelodeon was around in the early 1900s, but not entirely sure that Rugrats were around in the early 1900s.
Rugrats were always around.
But you've got to remember, these are the best doctors in the country. None of them can figure out how to stop the bleeding. He just keeps on not just bleeding, but becoming really unwell.
What if it's just the fact that Rasputin was a better doctor than them?
When did he become a doctor, though? He didn't go... he was barely literate.
Maybe he just looked at it from a different perspective rather than a clinical one. And he was like, well, if you just do this, that'll stop the bleeding. And it worked. Maybe there was something that he dealt with as being a farmhand, and it worked. So he
bleeding pig.
Just applied it here.
He pulled the tail and it stopped the bleeding. So this pattern continued somewhat. Rasputin would attend and heal Alexei and then be sent away, only for Alexei to be stricken again and Rasputin would be called for. The doctors could not emulate Rasputin's healing powers.
Is he making himself sick so Rasputin comes back? Does this kid have a crush on Rasputin?
Well, they did form a close bond.
Exactly.
But he's genuinely like at death's door.
Yeah, but is he doing that himself so that Rasputin comes back?
No, he's not.
Okay.
I can tell you that officially.
Were you there?
No.
Then no, you can't.
I can. In the summer of 1912, Alexei...
Was it 1912? Was it
yes!
1913? Were you there?
It was 1912. It gets better documented now. In the summer of 1912, Alexei began bleeding in his thigh and groin after a carriage ride, and a huge bruise got worse and worse. Alexei was delirious and at death's door. A telegram was sent by Alexandra to Rasputin, who was back in Siberia at this point, asking him to pray for Alexei. Just pray. Just pray. Rasputin responded quickly, stating, and I quote, "God has seen your tears and heard your prayers. Do not grieve. The little one will not die. Do not allow the doctors to bother him too much."
Do you reckon that he was literally bleeding because people kept fucking about with him? In terms, like, he may have had a rare condition where, I can't remember what it's called, where you get cut and you bleed really easily. But then people kept prodding on him and kept probing him. So he just kept bleeding more and more. And Rasputin was like, "I'm just going to leave you alone, mate. I'm just going to sit here and talk to you."
The next morning, Alexei remained unwell, but Alexandra was encouraged by Rasputin's response and sent the doctors away. The next morning, following Rasputin's prayer, Alexei was fine. It was decided at this point that Rasputin was essential to Alexei's continued living.
Right. So, she sent a telegram to Rasputin.
That she did.
Right. And they were in St. Petersburg.
Mm-hmm.
He was in Siberia.
Yeah.
How far apart are they?
Many hours at this point.
Just hours. So how
Russia's a big place.
Exactly. So when did that telegram? You told me that telegram got to Rasputin that same day.
Yeah.
And his response got back to them the same day.
Yeah.
So it's that short amount of distance.
Why is that a short amount of distance?
Well, they're not travelling by car at this point,
aren't they?
If they're travelling by car, why was he having a horse and carriage ride?
Because cars weren't that common at this point.
Exactly. I'm calling bullshit.
You're picking holes.
I'm calling bullshit. It's not picking holes. It's looking for facts.
Telegrams don't take 6 weeks to get somewhere.
But they don't take, like,
hours?
The next day. We can send something via Royal fucking Mail and it doesn't turn up the next day.
Yeah, but there's telegram stations. It's a glorified phone call. You're fully on board, right. Rasputin's now confirmed healing abilities brought him power and sway in court. Rasputin was appointed Nicolas II's lamplighter, whose job it was to keep the lamps in front of religious icons in the palace burning.
Sounds like a shit job.
Important job. Rasputin had the keys to the palace, so to speak. It's been suggested that around this time Rasputin was accepting sexual favours and bribes from his admirers to expand his influence and pursue his own interests. Rasputin changed his name to Rasputin Nu, Rasputin Novy in Russian, which was quickly granted by Nicolas in December 1906, illustrating Rasputin's sway over the Tsar. Rasputin v 2.0.
Wait. How does that mean that you have sway.
It was really hard to change your name.
To change your name.
Yeah, but everyone, like, it didn't get processed quickly. It wasn't an important thing for the Tsar to grant.
All he had to do was add a new to the end. New.
Yeah, but this is like a royal privilege.
It's not changing loads and loads of documents.
This isn't today, remember. This is Russia in the 1900s.
I just want to make my name New.
Your name is your name. You ain't changing that unless you're a Rasputin.
I'm going to call my name
Sorry.
Walker New.
So here's Rasputin with some of his admirers. A little picture for you.
Who's that old man?
I have no idea.
I was literally about to say he's got a harem of women. And then he's just an old... There's a few men in there.
Yeah, there's a couple of men. 1, 2, 3. There's at least 3 men. 4. One hidden between a couple of women. But there's at least quadruple the amount of ladies.
And there's a few of them that are like quite happy to be so close to him.
Yeah, they're all getting as close as they can.
There's one that happens to look like a man in women's clothing.
Yep.
And
yeah.
The woman on the outside is like, I see you. Like, it's as if he thought you had to be a woman to get in. So he dressed as a woman. And men were allowed in the first place. And she's like, I see you.
So yeah, he's getting...
But that old man just... He stands out. It's like, oh, it looks like a child's head has been, like, they've given him a fake beard and stuff. He's just got a really small head. So if you look at Rasputin's head and then look at his head, like, in the background, it's so tiny. It looks like a child.
The one to the right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rasputin and his bitches.
His harem.
His posse.
Where my bitches at?
His posse a pussy.
But remember, he's married with children.
No, he's not.
He's got his fingers up every skirt he sees.
I think you'll find Grigory was married with children. He's now Rasputin New.
Maybe that's why he changed his name. A loophole in the wedding laws.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, with great power comes great responsibility.
Okay. Or Uncle Ben.
Rasputin would become surrounded by controversy. Rasputin would begin being linked with blasphemy and even rape alongside political influence. Some claimed that he was also boning Alexandra. In 1907, the Pokrovskoy clergy denounced Rasputin as a heretic, and he was accused of spreading Klist-like ideology. The Prime Minister and the Tsar's secret police were among Rasputin's growing enemies. The Prime Minister attempted to bar Rasputin from St. Petersburg, but the Tsar was having none of it. Come March 1910, Rasputin was being accused of acting improper in the palace and even of misbehaving with the teenage daughters of the Tsar. Rasputin didn't help himself. He actually made prophecies too, and one in particular sounded like a threat and a curse. Rasputin wrote to the Tsar saying that if he were killed by common men, the Tsar and his children would rule Russia for centuries. But if Rasputin was killed by government officials, those related to the Tsar, the entire imperial family would be killed by the Russian people. Alongside all this, Russia was experiencing a rapidly declining economy, and people blamed Alexandra, and also Rasputin, due to his influence over her. So he's got right in there with the Tsar and the royal family. People don't like it.
But at the same time, these people making all this, I wouldn't say bullshit about him, but saying that he's doing like the spreading heresy and stuff like this, these are people that don't like him. So you're going to expect that from people that don't like him, especially in politics, because they're all a bunch of lying fucking twats.
And why don't they like him?
Because he has more sway and more power than they do.
But what's he using that sway for? He's just healing a kid and finger banging everyone.
He changed his name to New. Maybe they wanted the name New. A new name.
It's just jealousy, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. But he's also smart enough to cover his back and get the Tsar's protection from those government officials by saying, if I'm killed by this lot...
He's basically threatened the Tsar.
Something bad is going to happen to you. So
the Tsar knows that he's healing his child, so he's got mystic powers.
It's now a case of, you better protect me, or else. But then it's also saying, he kind of gives himself an out by saying, if I'm killed by a common person, then you'll rule for ages. So if you want me dead, just get someone off the street to do it.
But then they'd then be linked to him, wouldn't they? And it'd become political murder.
Family, though. Or someone with government ties.
Government officials, those related to the Tsar. So if
that doesn't include just someone generally on the street.
If they're...
Loopholes.
No. If they are coerced into it by someone of the government...
Doesn't say that.
That's what it implies.
Implying something and saying it directly are two different things. Does not say that here.
Killed by government officials, those related to the Tsar.
Those related to the Tsar by blood.
Doesn't say blood.
Well, that's how you're related to someone. Or marriage.
It doesn't mean like that. God damn it, don't get caught up on that.
That's literally what the words are.
This all escalated around late June to the 12th of July 1914 when a 33-year-old peasant named Chonya Guseva approached Rasputin outside his home and unexpectedly stabbed him in the stomach. Guseva roared, "I have killed the Antichrist!" Rasputin was wounded severely, with part of his stomach said by some to have emptied onto the floor. Rasputin still had enough life left to run away from Guseva, who chased him to finish the job. Rasputin managed to hit Guseva in the face, and a crowd gathered, protecting Rasputin. After some time in hospital, of course, Rasputin survived.
Pays to have a harem.
He was popular to begin with. The Russian people liked him. He was healing people and whatnot, wasn't he? He got a cult. Mm-hmm. It turned out that Guseva was a follower of Iliador, a priest also known as Trufanov, who had supported Rasputin before denouncing his sexual ways in December 1911. Ironically, after Iliador had attacked the Prime Minister in a paper around 1908, Rasputin ensured that Iliador could go back to Tsaritsyn rather than being exiled. Iliador did not like that Rasputin had free access to the imperial family, though, and that Rasputin liked to touch and kiss people. A friend of Iliador beat Rasputin in a monastery in 1911. Iliador then presented the Tsar with 5 supposed love letters written to Rasputin by Alexandra, though they aren't conclusive of anything naughty at all, and the Tsarina's close relationship with Rasputin on account of Alexei was well known. After the attempt on Rasputin's life, Iliador fled to Norway. Guseva would deny she worked on behalf of Iliador and had tried to kill Rasputin due to his temptation of the innocent, but Rasputin believed Iliador was indeed responsible. Guseva was sent to an asylum before being released in 1917 and attempting an assassination on someone else in 1919. The case against Iliador just stopped for undisclosed reasons.
Did it stop or was he taken out?
Iliador was still alive.
Oh.
Just they suddenly stopped pursuing the case against him.
So he was quite... Was he jealous that Rasputin wasn't touching him?
I don't know about the touching bit, but I think he was certainly jealous of Rasputin.
Because I can't... I know it's like early 1900s, but I can't understand why you would be annoyed that someone liked to touch and kiss people. Depending on... Because the fact that he touched and kissed people, the way I'm seeing it is that friendly kind. Like a kiss on the cheek and
finger
being
up
quite touchy with people.
Fondle of the balls, yeah.
None of that, but just in general. Because you know how some people are quite flirty and they touch people a lot.
Yeah.
Like just on the shoulder or hand on the back, that kind of stuff.
Some people are tactile. Yeah.
So I wonder if he was... I can't see why you just get annoyed with that. Unless you're
think
jealous because you're not like that.
Yeah, I think he's jealous of Rasputin's growing influence, where Rasputin has ended up. The fact that he's not someone of higher society himself, Rasputin,
and
so therefore he doesn't belong there.
Yeah. And he was... Because a friend of his beat Rasputin early on, and Rasputin's now like, mate, I'm doing you a favour. You're not getting exiled. Look how much power I have, bitch. That's right. I'm stopping you getting exiled.
Play to me.
Bow down to me when you see me, bitch. He's just a little bitch.
It's interesting. They just stopped the case against him. Like, those in power suddenly thought, ooh, maybe we should encourage this. Maybe they started disliking Rasputin as well.
And just left him.
Or just getting angry at him just because he doesn't come from that part of society. I'm
surprised the Tsar didn't.
Tsar loved him.
That's what I mean, but I'm surprised he didn't send, like, people out to get this Iliador. Considering how much he loved Raspy.
Rumours had been circulating for many years now that Rasputin was a member of the Klists, whom were a religious sect whose rituals were rumoured to include self-flagellation and sexual orgies. Basically, these folks would sin hard to then confess and bring them closer to God. Rather than live okay waiting to sin and then confess, these folks would take a shortcut, purposefully sinning to open the communication line with God and revel in their forgiveness. These rumours can't be proven though, so we will never know for definite if Rasputin was a member. Regardless, he's well documented to like a good time.
So they pretty much got high on their forgiveness.
Yeah. That may be a slight cover story because they like to bang, but...
They were like, forgive me, God!
They were naughty to have that chat with God.
And then they got off on that.
Yeah, I mean,
so
why...
they were being naughty, getting naughty. Oh, no, what the fuck I was getting at there.
Why live your life well and not get close to God when you can bang away and then you're close to God? Makes sense, right?
In a backward kind of way,
Do you reckon Klists exist around here? Should we find one?
Let's.
After the assassination attempt, Rasputin reportedly begun drinking heavily and behaving even worse. Rasputin would wander around St. Petersburg and indeed the palace, touching tits and butts and laughing about it as he dribbled alcohol down his beard. Rasputin would spend much time entertaining, shall we say, in salons and generally enjoying the company of others. But still he maintained favour with Alexandra. Of course he did, he's healing the kid.
He is literally, it's got to that point now where it's like, I nearly fucking died. I'm just going to go out and have a party now. I'm
going to enjoy my life.
Yeah. And he's like, hey, titty grab.
He walks past the maid. He even does a sound effect as he grabs the boob. Hello? What you going to do? I heal the Tsarina. Oh, Tsarina? Sahavik? The kid. I heal Alexei. I touch it of a titty too.
So
that one is a bit flat.
So these rumours of him bonking Alexandria, do you know what? I don't know, but I wouldn't believe them to be true. Because don't you think she'd be pretty pissed that he's going around just literally having sex with absolutely everyone?
Yeah.
And then having sex with her.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, he kind of has her because he can go, well, if you get angry about it, then your husband knows. And you don't want your husband to know, do you?
And I stop healing Alexei. Look, I grab your titty. Oh, that one's a bit squeaky.
Got the nipple.
Rasputin was providing political advice by this time, and in 1914, World War I had of course commenced. The Russian Empire joined the war, and after things weren't going great, Rasputin encouraged Nicolas II to join the front line and lead from the front. This left Rasputin at home with Alexandra, controlling the empire's day-to-day affairs. Rasputin even appointed his own followers to positions of power. The Russian elites could not believe Rasputin, a wandering monk with no financial, political or military experience, was pretty much making decisions for the country.
It makes sense though. If you look at it, so say for example, if you're losing a war,
Yep.
and then all of a sudden your king turns up on the battlefield to
Get
lead
shot.
you from the front, that's like an adrenaline boost to the whole group. And it's not a case of, oh, they don't give a shit about us, we're just cannon fodder. It's, he's here with us, fighting with us, let's win this shit. And then if Rasputin's at home with Alexandria and then making decisions from there, it's only logical that he would get his followers in positions of power, because he can't trust those other scheming political bastards, politicians, because we all know what politicians are like. So it makes logical sense. Can't argue with it. Don't get me wrong, I don't think he's a faith healer, but a genius.
So you don't think this was his plan all along? Like, as soon as he worked out that that kid was ill,
I don't know if
he
it
had a
was.
long-term plan to push Nicolas out and rule the country.
No, I don't think it was. I think if that did become a plan, it was one of those like on the fly plans. Just
Just riding the wave.
happened. Yeah, pretty much.
Hey, Nicolas, you go lead from the front line. I touch your balls.
Gave him a little bum slap on the way.
Oh, you poop on my hand. By 1915, the Russian Empire was suffering from their war effort, having halted a successful assault in Galicia to attack German-held Silesia. The combination of population shortages and Germans controlling the Baltic and Black Sea stopped much of Russia's supplies and markets. Iliador, by 1916 in hiding, plotted with Alexei Kovsostov to murder Rasputin before then attempting to bribe the Tsarina with a book about Rasputin before sailing to America. A group of nobles, led by Prince Felix Yusupov at this time, in December 1916, too decided they would watch Rasputin's influence over the Tsarina no more. The empire was suffering and Rasputin needed to go. Yusupov had befriended Rasputin over several weeks, often seeing him and providing him with alcohol. Rasputin was invited to Yusupov's palace on the 30th of December 1916 for some good times.
That weren't going to be no good times.
Good times.
But Iliador has a hard-on for Rasputin,
He
doesn't
did, but then he buggered off to America.
Well, he's back.
Then he buggered off to America. He plotted to kill him.
Didn't.
Buggered off to America. Then Yusupov comes into play.
Is that because he was like, I'm going to plot it? And he was like, but it might not work. How about I just bugger off to America? What if he buggered off to America to try and gain more followers to come back and then fight Rasputin? Because he's a little bitch. But, it's nearly New Year's Eve. It was a New Year's Eve party. And it wasn't going to be a good time.
Good times. Rasputin was asked to sit at a table in the basement because that's where the best parties are.
Of course they are.
Yusupov claimed in his book that Rasputin was given tea and cakes which had been laced with enough cyanide to kill 5 men. After initially refusing to eat, Rasputin relented and began eating the cakes. Not only did he eat them, he enjoyed them. Rasputin asked for some wine, also poisoned, to wash it down. Rasputin basically drank a bottle and was still fine. Yummy, yummy! At about 2:30 in the morning, Yusupov didn't know what to do. His partners were waiting upstairs for word to come down and help dispose of the body, but Rasputin was just dandy, enjoying his poisoned feast. Yusupov excused himself and went upstairs to secretly talk with his associates. He was given a revolver. It had to be done now, or light would come, and they couldn't hide the body. Yusupov returned to Rasputin with the revolver in hand and told Rasputin that he better look at the crucifix and say a prayer. Rasputin was shot once in the chest. The associates took Rasputin's coat and hat and drove to Rasputin's home to make it look like Rasputin returned. They then returned to the basement in Yusupov's palace, and as they entered, Rasputin leapt to his feet and attacked the men like a savage, unholy monster. During the scuffle, one of the associates cut off Rasputin's dick. Yusupov broke free and ran upstairs, followed by Rasputin, who was then shot in the courtyard by another associate. Rasputin collapsed. They bound Rasputin's wrists, wrapped Rasputin in a blanket, and drove to the Petrovsky Bridge before dumping Rasputin in the river.
So, he had poison cakes and poison wine.
Yeah, enough to kill 5 men.
Do you reckon he was
Loved it.
either told, I wouldn't say told beforehand, but do you reckon he had someone in what's his name's? Yusupov's place that actually liked Rasputin, so didn't lace him with the poisons?
Supposedly not. Supposedly this was all poisoned to high heaven.
He's got a gut of steel.
All that alcohol abuse.
And, that's a good point. The amount of alcohol he's drunk.
He can take anything, this man.
So did Rasputin actually say anything before being shot? Or did he literally say,
Not that I'm aware
look
of.
at your crucifix and say a prayer. Bang!
Pop. Yeah. Then they go and make it look like Rasputin left.
Well,
Come
you know
back.
what happened there, don't you? They didn't give him enough time to say a prayer. It's their own fault. The adrenaline going through him must have been through the roof.
Savagery.
For you to have your dick cut off and still just keep charging after him.
Just think about that for a second.
No.
How did he get his dick cut off?
He must have been hard.
Even so, he's dressed.
Was he dressed? Oh, so...
They took off his coat and hat.
So either they undressed him...
I suppose they could have undressed him completely, but regardless.
That's weird. I initially just thought in my head that...
Oh, he was flapping around.
That they undressed him.
Well, even so, to cut off the dick is quite a thing to do in a scuffle.
Do you reckon in the scuffle, like, the guy that cut his dick off, like, his brother was there, and his brother was in a, like, tussle with him, and his Rasputin's dick was just slapping his brother in the face repeatedly. And he couldn't take it anymore, so he had to cut his dick off. But then he would have had to have grabbed it to cut it off. Or did he just make a clean slice? How? Because...
This is the story.
Unless... I can't see how you can cut his dick off.
Not by accident.
Without injuring any other part of his body. Unless... But then even if someone held him down, he's still going to wriggle out.
To me, someone has purposely done that.
Yeah.
Target his dick. they're all fighting, and one man's like,
go for his dick.
He's got a plan.
Do you reckon Rasputin had slept with his wife or something?
He probably slept with his whole family.
So he was on taking his dick. Maybe he got told. Maybe he was impotent. And he got told, the dick of Rasputin will bring you back.
Like, Jimmy, what you doing? Jimmy's just waving the dick around.
I'm going to eat his dick.
Nah.
I will have his power.
I got his dick.
So they bound his wrists and stuff and threw him in the river.
Yeah.
I'm pretty
shot
sure
and beaten to death.
We have
then bound.
Mentioned Rasputin before in another story, and
I've dropped his name into several without you necessarily realising.
No, I have. Rasputin's dick was high on your agenda in the first couple of episodes.
Very, very high on my agenda.
There's definitely one where we explain something, and I think that's coming up, so I won't press on.
So news of Rasputin's disappearance, and indeed his murder, travelled before even his body was found. Some involved spoke freely of the events. Blood was found on the back door of Yusupov's palace. Blood was also noticed on the railing of the bridge, and a boot found in the ice below, which was confirmed to belong to Rasputin by his family.
Oh, hold up. What family?
Rasputin's still got a wife and kids, remember?
So
Rasputin knew, sorry.
So Rasputin... Are these
The whole time?
Grigory's wife and kids?
Yes, he's still with them. He goes back to Siberia to be with them.
Fair enough.
He's just banging all sorts of other things
I
on
would
the...
kind of accept that. I thought he had left them behind and was just like having his way wherever he was. Where he was, but
he was still married with children.
Literally just left them behind, because how would they be able to identify a boot?
No, they were still heavily involved. Obviously, we looked at a few photos later in life with them together.
Boots are boots, though, aren't they? I would have thought most.
I would
boots
say
would
yes,
look the same.
but I wasn't around in Russia at this time, and I'd also say that in the 1900s, it wasn't like you could go to a JD Sports and pick up a new pair of shoes. They were probably custom made, so...
I would have thought they would have all looked similar, though, just to save from
No,
time.
I reckon people got like their family crests and all sorts of shit on them.
True.
They're all made by tailors and whatever you call a shoemaker. Probably a shoemaker. So Rasputin's body was found under the river ice 200 metres downstream on the 1st of January 1917. Yusupov was placed under house arrest before eventually being exiled, and his associates were sent to battle on the front lines. When he was found, Rasputin's hands were no longer bound and his lungs were filled with water, meaning that Rasputin was killed by the cold water, not by the assaults he experienced. Rasputin had Houdini'd himself free and nearly made it back to land. He was nearly invincible.
Nearly.
Dickless. And hungry for revenge.
He really wanted out, didn't he? It's a shame that he didn't get out. Can you imagine the story if he would have got out? Rasputin the Invincible.
I tripped like crazy off these cakes I had.
Rasputin knew the Invincible.
So Rasputin's dick was actually pickled, placed into a jar. Rasputin was said to bang everyone, pretty much, and his wife was even okay with this, saying that Rasputin had enough for all. Rasputin's penis made its way eventually to Russia's first museum of erotica. Viewing the penis is said to cure men of impotency. People go to see Rasputin's dick for its magical sexual powers. Rasputin's penis is supposedly much larger than Napoleon's, which, after being removed during his autopsy and smuggled away, is now stored in America. Napoleon's is 1.5 inches, and whilst it has been seen, the owner does not allow it to be photographed. I'm now going to show you Rasputin's limp penis in a jar. So in the picture we've got the penis in the jar and there's a lady looking at it through like a viewing glass. The penis is bigger than her head. Or longer than her head, I should say.
I love the fact that it said Rasputin's penis is supposedly much larger than Napoleon's, which is 1.5 inches. That's fucking tiny. Oh, I was about to say the smallest dick in the world is probably bigger than that, but who knows? That may very well be the smallest dick in the world. She is looking intently at that thing, isn't she?
She's imagining what could have been. And you got to think that's limp, and it's the length of her. It's longer than her head. Limp.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What was going through his mind after cutting the dick off to then save it? Was it like a trophy?
I couldn't even tell you.
Cut off his dick! dick. I got a trophy.
With the others look at him
Was it like dog tags? Instead of collecting dog tags, they collected dicks.
Yeah, I'm not aware that this is a common thing.
That's fucking weird.
I love the fact that you've not complained that I've just shown you a penis.
It's fine. Rasputin's dick. In a jar.
Dick in a jar.
Pickled dick.
I'm torn between whether to call this episode the Telepathic Mystic Sex Healer or Dick in a Jar.
Dick in a jar.
In the February Revolution of 1917, the Tsar was overthrown in a pool of political division. The mismanaged war effort, economy instability, and the Rasputin scandal. Nicolas abdicated on the 2nd of the 3rd, 1917. Rasputin's body was exhumed and burned days later. But remember, Rasputin's curse? The curse was clear, for me at least. Rasputin foretold that if he was assassinated by those associated with the monarchy rather than civilians, the Tsar and his family would die. This came to pass. Between the 16th and 17th of July 1918, the Romanov family were executed in full at the hands of the Bolsheviks, the Marxist faction now in power, via gunshot and bayonet. Nicholas II, Empress Alexandra, and all 5 children, Olga, Tatiana, Maria, Anastasia, and Alexei, all murdered, and their bodies were then stripped and mutilated in a nearby forest. They were buried in an unmarked grave never to be found, or so they thought. In 1979 and in 2007, remains of the bodies were indeed found in unmarked graves in a field called Porosenkov Log. DNA analysis confirmed that it was the Romanov family, with the final 2 children found in 2007. The new Soviet leadership covered up the murders for 8 years, saying they were assassinated by revolutionaries and then denying they were dead at all. It wasn't until 1989 that the Soviets admitted the existence of the remains. The world we live in is bonkers.
That is mental. So, shot and stabbed.
Yeah, and then mutilated.
Were they afraid of zombies back then? Or is this
I think it's
kind of
the embarrassed Mother Russia.
Yeah, I
blame
piss
you for
on
all
your grave kind of thing.
Yeah.
Ah, that's overkill.
Children as well.
I mean, you could have literally just exiled them.
Yeah.
There was no need for that.
Like they'd done to others. And remember, they dug up and burned Rasputin's body as well.
Yeah.
They weren't letting him settle and come back.
Afraid that he came back.
Come back for his dick in a jar.
What if he still lives on in that dick? All it takes is taking it out of the jar, leaving it for a couple of days, and then a full-grown Rasputin grows back from it.
It's like Groot. I'm Rasputin.
Or instead of Groot, it's like Deadpool. So the rest of him grows out.
Yeah. So how did Rasputin heal young Alexei? Some claim that the emotional reassurance he provided was all that it took. Others claim that Rasputin's pilgrimage, whereby he stayed in strangers' houses, had taught him the powers of cold reading used by psychics today, or even hypnosis, hypnotising Alexei's body to slow the heart rate and bleeding. Alexei had hemophilia, which is a condition you may have mentioned earlier, preventing blood from clotting.
I couldn't think of the name of it though.
The doctors of the day did not know of this condition, and aspirin, a miracle drug at the time, had begun being sold in 1899 and was used to treat pain and fever. A side effect of aspirin is that it can thin the blood, but this wasn't known back then. For someone with hemophilia, this could significantly worsen the condition. Remember, Rasputin always told the medics to back off, and he would work his mystic mojo. By simply telling the medics to back off, aka not administering drugs, Alexei's condition likely would have significantly improved, consistent with the historical accounts.
Fucking told you.
Yeah, I tried to walk you away from that.
So, do you think he knew at the time?
Or did he chance it?
Oh, yeah.
It's possible he may have had a suspicion, I guess.
Or something like that may have happened, literally, like I said, while he was a farmhand. He may have seen that and was like, let me just try this. And, like I said...
Well, he might have even completely disbelieved in, like, standard scientific health ways. He was a mystic healer, remember? So he might have really believed what he was suggesting. Get those quacks away, I'll sort this out. I'll sort this out. Look, I'll touch his balls.
And, like I said, the fact that he learned... I think just being in people's houses, he spoke to a lot of people. He's quite charismatic, so... Literally would spend his nights where he did stay with other people, talking to other people and listening.
Yeah.
Therefore, the ability to listen well and just tell people what they wanted to hear.
Yeah. Traveller magician.
Travelling listener. Therapist.
With magic powers.
Is he the world's first therapist?
Sex therapist. Even today, all you got to do is look at his dick and it cures impotency. Accounts of Rasputin's life are actually mostly based on hearsay and rumour, and we know that history is often written by the winners, so to speak. Rasputin's daughter, Mary, reported until her own death in 1977 that Rasputin was actually a kind and gentle man who was portrayed poorly in the media due to political conflict and problems of the times. She is firm that Rasputin was not a sexual deviant any more than what would be reasonable. Mary said that Rasputin did study the Klist's ideas, though. So he studied sexy times, but he wasn't any more than what would be reasonable.
Well, the thing is, there's a difference between having a lot of sex and being a sexual deviant.
Yeah.
So, I think it was, like you said to me, people didn't like him.
Yeah.
So, just spread rumours to try and get people to not like him as well. Get him in the shit. Shit-stirring little bastard.
Shit! Meanwhile, Rasputin officially died of 3 gunshot wounds. His autopsy report detailed much trauma and a slice to his left side. The bullet in Rasputin's body was too damaged to trace. No evidence was found that Rasputin was poisoned. We only have Yusupov's word. If he was poisoned, the cyanide could have been old stock, which loses its toxicity. Rasputin may have also had alcohol-induced gastritis, which would lower stomach acid, meaning that cyanide isn't converted in the stomach. Historians Douglas Smith and Joseph Fuhrman both report that there was actually no trace of water in Rasputin's lungs, indicating that he was dead before hitting the water. Rasputin's dick was still attached to his body. So yes, people have been praying to a random man's, or as zoologists believe, a horse's penis. We have a photo of Rasputin's dead body, which you can Google, as I don't really want to post this one. There's a bullet hole in his forehead, and he looks like he's been beaten too. Here it is for you, G.
Oh.
Pretty gnarly, dude.
That is... For those of you that have played The Last of Us 2... there is a heartbreaking scene quite early. Picture that.
No spoilers.
And that's what he looks like.
So yeah, that's the autopsy report. But do you believe autopsy reports from this potentially corrupt government?
Could be anyone. But for this one, yeah, I think it is quite safe to say that's him.
I do love the idea.
But can we see the eyes?
I do love the idea that people are going to pray to a random penis.
A horse's dick.
And it's curing them. It's a mystic horse.
We need to find this unicorn.
So to summarise, we've had Grigory Rasputin, born to a peasant family in Siberia. Rasputin lived an unremarkable life, moving, settling down with a wife, and having 3 adult children of 7 born. Then, 10 years into his marriage, Rasputin decides to go on a pilgrimage and comes back a changed man. Rasputin begins holding prayers and gains followers, eventually being sent to St. Petersburg, where he impresses all and meets the Tsar. Rasputin begins mysteriously healing Alexei, heir of the Tsar, when he is at death's door, repeatedly. Doctors can't explain it. Rasputin gets right in there with the Tsar and family having free access and getting in their ears, which rubs up others the wrong way. There is an attempt on his life, and afterwards Rasputin begins behaving even worse. World War I starts and Rasputin advises the Tsar to lead from the front, leaving him in the ear of his close friend, the Tsarina, who is in charge of day-to-day Russian Empire business. Rasputin and the Tsarina are blamed for Russia's worsening fortunes, and eventually Yusupov does murder Rasputin, claiming that Rasputin survived a mauling and gunshots and a dick cut before dying in cold water. The autopsy report, which has been lost, does not confirm Yusupov's story. Rasputin's dick may or may not still have been attached. Rasputin's prophecy about the Tsar dying does come to pass, however. Rasputin's debauchery may have been greatly exaggerated, much like his death. Anything you want to run over again before we conclude?
Not really, actually. His dick was still intact, but I would say the moment you said there was a slice to his body, I was like, ooh. So when they did cut the dick off, it did slice him. But then you said the dick was still there. So I was like, it was a gun wound.
Supposedly, yeah.
So what we've come to find out is that Rasputin was a very good listener. And
a kind, gentle soul.
The elitists of Russia at the time didn't like the fact that he had more sway than they did.
Potentially.
Coming from such a lowly place or foothold in their eyes.
Again, that's a theory, yeah.
Pricks, but he did like to fuck.
So are you saying that Rasputin was a telepathic, mystic, sex-healing monk? I've popped some final photos of him below so you can look into those telepathic, mystic, sex-healing eyes of his. Say it.
Let's have a look. Look into them eyes.
Telepathic, mystic, sex-healing monk.
I'm going to say those eyes really are creepy.
Yeah, they're striking, aren't they? They genuinely are, jokes aside.
I want to say it's as if like the centre of his eye is black and there's like he had a blue ring around it or something. It's just something doesn't sit right. But no, I'm not saying that Rasputin was a telepathic, mystic, sex healing monk. I think that he was just a guy that liked to have sex and would listen to people's problems and tell them what they wanted to hear, whereas they probably weren't used to people listening to them.
I'm not saying that Rasputin was a telepathic, mystic, sex-healing monk, but it was Rasputin. This one took a long time to research. I think the account of Rasputin's death from Yusupov was probably embellished to sell books and make Rasputin look like a monster, which in turn made out Yusupov to be some kind of saviour. The same is probably true for much of Rasputin's reputation. He did have a mistress, so he was probably just a bit of a randy yet religious man with a talent for reading people. Maybe he was surprised at how his connections panned out and then got a bit power hungry. Meanwhile, this could also be an example of what happens when a peasant enters the circle of aristocrats and they get jealous. But as I've outlined, I'm more inclined to go with Rasputin the street magician and cold reader than I am paranormal, mystic, psychic. But what a tale.
What a tale indeed.
Dick in a jar.
Dick in a jar. Dick in a jar. Dick in a jar.
Step 1, take the lid off that jar.
Step 2,
put a dick in that jar.
Step 3, profit. That is probably just a horse's penis. Poor horse. Unless it was a dead horse, but still poor horse.
If it's a horse's penis, I made you look with intent at a horse's penis for a good 5 minutes.
That's fine.
That's today's show, folks. This has been a deep dive into some real history. We've cleared up the rumours and made a decision on Rasputin. Maybe you'll come to your own conclusions. Let us know on the socials. We're on the Twitter. On the Twitter. At But It Was Aliens, and Instagram. On the gram. At But It Was Aliens Podcast. Thank you for listening. Don't put anyone's dick in a jar.
Dick in a jar. Unless you can guarantee it has healing powers. Then you can put a dick in a jar.
But if you have doubts about someone, don't do that. Just dig for the truth. The truth is up there. #tag.
And dear me, if you still want to swap that car for Kev's left bollock. No. In a jar.
Pickle dick.
Tranquility Base